Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
In this module, I am presenting a case study of midday meal scheme in India, whether in which we are going to discuss that how Government of India's one of the policy has the impact on the education, and how this particular scheme has created education as a social infrastructure in India. Let me begin with the brief outline. We will first present the economic impact of education at micro level and macro level with two different equations, and then we will try to link those theoretical assumptions with the midday meal scheme in India. Theoretically, if we have to see the macroeconomic impact of education in a very simplest form, the return on education R can be estimated as R is equal to y 1 minus y 0 divided by S multiplied by y 0 plus C 1, where the y 1 and y 0 is equal to the mean earning of workers who are literate and illiterate respectively. S is the number of years of schooling, C 1 is the annual cost of keeping someone in the school, and y 0 is the opportunity cost of attending schools rather than working in the labor market. So, here one can see that at the individual level there are certain returns of education, and it is well understood that if the education level is poor, if the worker is really uneducated, not been to the schools, their basically earnings, workers earning is really get affected. At macro level, we can also see here in a different equation where the y is the function of n, l and k, where n is the land, cultivated area of land, where the L is the number of persons or working hours of the worker, the capital in terms of the value of physical plant in the operation. So, here one can see that how a number of persons or man hours work is really related with how a skilled and educated population is available in the economy. And in case of newly industrialized countries, we have seen that how education has made certain impact on the employment standard and the working standard of the people in some economy. And there is a direct impact of such a skilled workforce on the national output, which is y in this particular equation. In case of educational infrastructure, even if we are looking at the primary level, the optimum number of classrooms are required, proper student teacher ratio is required, construction and maintenance of educational institutions is very imperative, adequate sanitary facilities for boys and girls is also important, as the Government of India has recently announced that every school will have the separate toilet facility for the girls, and power and computer facilities with internet is being one of the necessity today, not really achievable in a very short span of time, but it will take really some more time to achieve certain targets. Again, a basic library and certain labs are also required as a part of the educational infrastructure. Let me begin the case study of midday meal scheme in India. On 15th August 1995, the National Program of Nutritional Support to Primary Education was launched as a centrally sponsored scheme by the Government of India, and which has the coverage of 2408 blocks initially, but by the year 1997-98 it was introduced to the all blocks of the country. It was further extended in 2002 to cover not only children in class 1 to 5 of government aided and local body schools, but also children studying in other educational institutions, private centers. In September 2004, the scheme was revised to provide cooked midday meal with 300 calories and 8 to 12 grams of protein to all children studying in class 1 to 5 in government and aided school and EGS and AIE centers. What was basic objective of this midday meal scheme? The first objective was to increase the enrollment of students, to really stop the dropouts in the schools, provide the nutritional support to the children, ensure the social environment empowerment of all the sections of the society, and at the last the larger public welfare. So, how infrastructure is again linked with the midday meal schemes, because midday meal schemes is providing the proper and adequate infrastructure, physical infrastructures like water supply, kitchen sets, mess and storage facilities, which is also required to provide the midday meal to the children. Adequate number of cooking utensils, adequate number of staffs, organizers, cook and helper, and proper management. In this figure, we can find out basically the curve is the indifference curve, where an individual is supposed to get the maximum advantage tangent to the budget line, and where at the point of E we are finding that out of two goods consumption, food for children, and on O x axis we have other consumer goods, and we are finding that a consumer is typically having the condition of maximum utility derived at point E, where the indifference curve of that particular individual consumer is tangent to the budget line, that is the AA. So, it shows the trade off between the food for children and other consumption goods. So, theoretically we can say that given a constant, a budget constant, an individual is supposed to derive the maximum utility, and this particular midday meal schemes, which is providing food for the children, is certainly having utility gains for the society. So, the coverage under midday meal schemes, total number of children covered under midday meal schemes in last few years is like that. All these figures are in crores. So, we have around 11 crore children covered under midday meal schemes. Again 2010-11, 11-12, 12-13 and 13-14 shows that total number of children covered under midday meal schemes is above 10 crores. So, this shows that one of the most successful programs in India, and the coverage under midday meal schemes, number of children covered under primary and upper primary levels is again shown here, while the this program has covered large number of primary level student. In 2009-10 8.41 crores, while at the upper primary level 3.36 crores. Again in 2010-11 7.97 crores at the primary level, and again 3.39 at the upper primary level. We have the similar data in 2011-12, where 7.71 crore students, children were covered in the primary stage, while the upper primary level 3.36 crore children were covered. So, but there are certain problems associated with the midday meal schemes, and every day we are finding that there are certain issues related to midday meal schemes. Newspapers are covering varieties of news about the problem faced by the children in the midday meal scheme. But what are those problems? If one can see those problems, one of the problem is lack of proper checks and monitoring of the food supplied in this particular scheme. The second problem is the corruption in allocation of funds and its utilization. Many critics do say that the program is very successful on paper, but not very successful in the field. But as an observer, one can also find out across the country that midday meal scheme cannot be treated as one of the failure at the school level, because it has somehow increased the enrollment rate in the schools, especially at the primary level. And the extended midday meal scheme has also covered large number of students in many part of this country. So, but as far as corruption is involved, there are huge corruption cases at the level of procurement and also at the level of distribution, because schools were the centers for these schemes, and gram panchayats and other local bodies were basically instructed to take care of these schemes. And due to the nexus between the panchayat level and the municipal corporation level persons with the school administration, we are finding that there are certain areas where allocation of resources, funds, is sometimes not really utilized properly, and sometimes it is also seen that it is underutilized. The third major problem with this scheme is the improper and unhygienic government warehouses for food grains, and we do find out that due to this problem there are certain cases of hospitalization during the midday meal schemes for the children's, because if it is not properly stored, if the food grains are not properly stored, and if it is not maintaining the hygienic conditions where the food is being cooked, then students are facing many health problem, and certain emergency conditions are also being seen at the school level. So, this ill-equipped storage and cooking malpractices at local level is another issue, because the people involved in producing those items, cooking the food, are not really trained, and sometimes they are not really accountable, and they are not really concerned about providing those items in a very hygienic way. So, that creates the problem for the entire midday meal schemes, and there are lots of criticism of such schemes, and many states has constant problems noticed for running such schemes. At the same time, the staffs are not really trained, and they are not really trained for cooking the food, and that creates the problem, and they are also underpaid, because a very small amount of small payment are being made to those workers who are basically working the food for the kids. So, lack of accountability at the school level, at the local bodies level, at the panchayat level, at the municipal corporation level is also seen, because it covered the large number of schools, and large number of students are enrolled in the school these days, and maintaining hygienic food distribution is one of the basic challenge for any schools today. So, with this discussion, we can find out that it is true that midday meal schemes are finding certain challenges, but if you can see the statistics of the success of the midday meal scheme, we are finding that plus 10 crore population is being covered under this midday meal scheme, and in different years, and that is basically a very positive news for the success of such schemes in India. Many developing country which has problems of dropout, huge dropout, least developed countries, many African countries are really having a dropout problem today, and when the dropout problem is consistently seen, it is important to stop such dropouts through certain proactive steps, as these steps are being taken in India by the central government. But at the same time, when we are doing this, when we are when we are really really working on a policy at a very large level. One thing is the funding, because this is one of the social infrastructure which is going to help us in the long run, and at the same time when we are funding these programs, there is a leakage involved in least developed and developing country. How to stop this leakage is another challenge for the social infrastructure development. So, this particular problem is not only the problem of one country, but this is the problem across the country, and in that case one of the challenge for the social development, social infrastructure development is the corruption involved and accountability involved in providing such facility. So, while taking education or health or other social infrastructure as one of the prime responsibility of the government, it cannot be ignored today that it is not the only responsibility of the government to provide certain facilities to the people, but it is also the responsibility of the public body, it is also responsibility of the non-governmental organizations and the other partners such as parents and the village people to really help the government, to really support the government for financing such programs. And even having certain success, the different challenges which we have discussed today as a part of midday meal scheme is one of the eye opener for many country, and taking lessons from such schemes. India and other developing country can really work upon providing education to all, and as this is also one of the important agenda for right to education program. But right to education with the help of midday meal schemes and other physical infrastructure development programs will really serve the major purpose of the providing education at the larger level in the society. I hope with this discussion on education, our next discussion on health will also give us certain idea that how primary health and other health facilities is also one of the major social infrastructure to be built up, and how a country can really break the deadlock in development through developing educational and health services in a very targeted way. Thank you.